Hey guys, we're gonna make something different today. Normally on here I like to focus on healthy dishes or share healthier versions of recipes with you all. But today we're gonna get a little sentimental and make something that my sweet little grandmother taught me about. She lived to be 100 years old. So although these ingredients are not something necessarily that you would consider healthy, apparently they didn't hurt her too bad because she thrived and did great. She actually lived on her own until she was 97. And then my aunt took care of her for the last like 3 years of her life. So, but she lived to be 100 and she ate these things. So, you know, there might be something to it. I might be doing this all wrong. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and get started with this. It's a simple recipe as far as the ingredients go. You're gonna need some whole milk, bacon grease, little salt and pepper, and then self-rising cornmeal. And it's a whole lot like breakfast gravy as far as like a flour gravy. It's pretty much the same method of making it that breakfast gravy is. The only difference is instead of using flour, you're using cornmeal. Now you might wonder, what do you serve cornmeal gravy with? Not breakfast foods really. What I usually serve it with is if I'm making like pork chops and fried potatoes and cornbread, I like to make some cornmeal gravy to go with it, and then I just pour it over all of those dishes. It's super, super good. It's not something that I make very often because, like I've shared with you all, we do try to eat healthier now. But sometimes it's good to have a little treat, you know, turn the clock back a little bit with some of the recipes that our grandparents used to make. So come along and we will get started making this. And if this is something that you've heard of and that you've even made before, I would love for you all to share that with me in the comments. And if you do it a little bit different, share that as well. I'm open to learn new things here. So we'll get started making this and then we'll see what it looks like when it's done. And I'm gonna use a couple tablespoons of bacon grease. There we go. And we're just going to melt this down. Get that out of the way. We'll melt this down here. Bacon grease smells, well, basically exactly like bacon cooking. So needless to say, it makes your mouth water. Gosh, it's good stuff. But this dish it's something like my grandmother, for example, when she was raising her kids, of course, they didn't have much. And so she had to cook things that would go a long way, things that were easily available to her, that did not cost a lot of money. And so cornmeal gravy is something that she used to make. And she used to make what she called skillet bread. It's sort of a cross between, cross between nothing. It's actually more like a really thick pancake, but it's a bread. She would make it in a cast iron skillet and she would just make it really thick and it would turn out to be just a big skillet of bread. And she would serve that with a lot of things that she liked to make. She wasn't a big cook as far as making a whole lot of different things, but she was extremely resourceful. So some of the things that she made, she had talked to me about as I was growing up. And this is just one of the things that stuck with me. And as she got older, she was actually in her 90s, and she told me one day that she was craving some fried potatoes and cornmeal gravy. And I told her, I was like, I'll go ahead and try to make you some of that. And so, of course, I'd made fried potatoes forever, but I went ahead and learned how to make cornmeal gravy, and I made it for her. And the biggest compliment ever, she said it was delicious. So that was exciting. It could have been a total flop, but thankfully it turned out good. But we've got this grease just melted down here. So I'm gonna let that heat up for just a minute longer because we want it to be good and hot before we add the cornmeal in. And it is hot because it's bubbling. So I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle the cornmeal in here. Let's turn the heat down just a little bit. And then you just want to mix the cornmeal in with the grease to get a good roux going. And I like to get my cornmeal gravy just like I do my breakfast flour gravy. I like to get it good and brown. You almost bring it, you don't burn it, but you get it so brown it looks like it is about to burn. And that makes the best gravy that way. And this is browning up nicely here. I'm going to add a little bit more cornmeal. You just add a little at a time until you get the desired thickness that you're going to want for your gravy. I'll turn that down just a little. I like to brown it a little slow. And I'll show you all what this looks like up close here. It's bubbling real good, and you can see it almost looks like it's burning, but the key is just to keep that moving around in the pan. You don't want to let it sit there. So it is nice and brown. So at this point, we'll go ahead and add the milk in. Get y'all set back up there, and we'll be back in just a second. So we've got this good and brown, and we're going to go ahead and add the milk in. That should be good right there. Okay, and we're just going to stir this up good. Gotta stir it slow so it doesn't splash out everywhere. I'm bad for that. I oftentimes make quite the mess whenever I'm cooking. But since I'm the one that has to clean it up, that's okay. So you just want to cook this until it gets all good and combined, and then you're going to let it come to a boil, and then let it simmer for several minutes until it gets to the thickness that you want. So we're going to go ahead and let that cook and thicken a little, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. Alrighty, we've been cooking this for several minutes now, and it's good and thick. And all we have to do now, we're going to turn the heat down, and we're going to go ahead and season it. So I'm going to salt it. And then add some black pepper. I better not open that side. That was the side that just pours it out. We don't want to do that. We'll sprinkle it here. And I add a generous amount of black pepper to mine. So the next time that you make pork chops or fried potatoes or cornbread or all of the above, I would encourage you to give cornmeal gravy a try and see how you and your family likes it. We love it here. It's a delicious dish. And it pairs really good with those foods. Alrighty. And my sweet little grandma that made this, like I said, she lived to be 100. She was a spitfire. She actually dipped tobacco, or actually dipped snuff and chewed tobacco. She only dipped snuff if somebody was around that had snuff. That wasn't something that she normally bought for herself, but she chewed rope tobacco. And maybe that's why she lived to be 100, doing that and eating cornmeal gravy, I don't know. But she was just a spitfire. She was one of the kind of people that you never had to worry about not knowing where you stood with her. She would flat out tell you like it was. And she would do it with the most love, though. But she was so sassy. She was funny in the sense that you never was just right. You were either too fat or too skinny, or your hair was too short or it was too long. She always, like, and if you colored your hair, for example, my sister came over her house one day and my sister had dyed her hair. And my grandma was getting on to her for putting that old dye on her hair. And she said, sis, I don't know why on earth that you put that old dye on your hair. People can look at your face and tell that you're old. So that's just one example of how she was. Like I said, you did not have to wonder where you stood with her. But she was precious, and every time I make cornmeal gravy, I think of her. And it's a sweet, sweet memory. But we'll go ahead and see here. I'll show y'all how this is nice and thick. So we've got the cornmeal gravy all finished, and the way that I'm serving it tonight is just over cornbread. I just took a piece of cornbread, sliced it in half, and poured the gravy over top of it. And like I said, it's delicious poured over breaded pork chops or chicken breasts that you've breaded and fried, fried potatoes. It is delicious that way. So next time that you make some of those dishes, maybe make some cornmeal gravy. And if you've never made it before, see how your family likes it. And if you wouldn't care, come back and leave a comment on this video and let me know if you do make it and if you liked it and how yours turned out. Maybe include a picture. I'd love to see it. So I hope this is something that maybe taught you all something new, or if not, maybe brought back some good memories for you. Y'all have a good day.